Diri Mukaro Aguibana, Boriken Taino Daka. Greetings to all the relatives. My name's Roberto Mukaro Borrero. I am a Taino representing the United Confederation of Taino People and have the great honor to moderate this IITC or
Es un gran honor para mí iniciar
International Indian
esta
Treaty Council
reunión
webinar.
y ser el moderador para
Well,
este webinario de
The interpreter is on the wrong channel.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll just start again. Thank you very much. My name is Roberto Mukaro Borrero. As I said, I have the great honor to be moderating this panel, this International Indian Treaty Council webinar series starting today. Protecting and restoring our traditional food and ecosystems, protecting practical knowledge sharing with Indigenous peoples. This is the first session on protecting and saving seeds. I'm just going to revert very quickly into Spanish for those who don't know how to use the interpretation feature yet. Bienvenidos a todos. Me llamo Roberto Mukaro Borrero. Soy del pueblo taíno y voy a tomar el papel de moderador para el webinario de City hoy del Consejo Internacional de Tratados Indios, protección y restauración de nuestros alimentos y ecosistemas tradicionales, intercambio de conocimiento con los pueblos indígenas. Sesión 1, proteger y guardar semillas. Voy a volver al inglés y con algunas instrucciones para usar la función de interpretación. Okay, I'm just going to revert back to English for just a moment. So for folks who are tuning in and don't know how to use the interpretation feature, let me just share my screen with you so we can just go over the interpretation. You should be seeing my screen right now. So right here, you'll see the very first thing. You should have the most recent version of Zoom. If you're not seeing an interpretation icon at the bottom, just restart your Zoom session and you should be able to see it. But the first thing you want to do is locate that interpretation icon at the bottom right of your screen. You'll see that little globe there. There's a little image that shows you that. And then once you click on that interpretation globe, you want to select English. Following that, you want to select mute original audio. This is very important because if you don't select mute original audio, you'll hear both the translation and the speaker at the same time. So you want to make sure that you click onto that. Following that, if you have any questions or comments, you see again, here's the image to show you where to click. But if you have any questions or comments, you could just send them to the moderator using the chat icon. Now I'm going to just switch this into Spanish so that we can just share these instructions again, and then we'll start with our program. Bueno, para los que hablan español, aquí es la interpretación, las instrucciones para la interpretación de la plataforma de Zoom. Primero, localice el icono de interpretación. Está en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Aquí tú puedes ver en el imagen, hay un globito, abajo de eso dice interpretación. Seleccione eso y después seleccione Spanish, español. Después de eso, selecciones Mute Original Audio, que quiere decir apaga el audio original. Aquí es en imagen, puede ver Spanish, seleccione eso y después Mute Original Audio. Y eso es muy importante porque si no vas a escuchar el presentador también y los intérpretes en el mismo vez. So, ahora voy a volver porque ya tenemos interpretación y voy a volver en inglés. Gracias. All right, I'm just going to stop the share and we're going to begin with our presentations today. Our first presentation is an introduction by the Executive Director of the International Indian Treaty Council, Andrea Carmen. She's from the Yaqui Nation. She's speaking from Arizona, and she's going to give a little bit more background about today and about the entire series. Andrea, you have the floor.
Yokweutesia umawayaim kitanilenzu simiwayaim Thank you very much, my relatives, and I'm really honored to be able to briefly introduce this, which is our third webinar series. We began back in May when we realized, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic was going to be here for a while, and we needed to adjust our usual way of meeting and talking and sharing with each other, which is through in-person gatherings where we actually bring traditional food producers and knowledge holders and activists together to share our strategies and build our relations and restore our relations between each other for the survival of our peoples and the resiliency facing crises that we already have and continue to have, like climate change. But we began in May to begin to talk about the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on Indigenous peoples, as well as some of our strategies to respond to this crisis situation, which included strengthening our food sovereignty and restoring, in some cases, our traditional methods, our use of our traditional seeds, finding those seeds, repatriating those seeds. And for IITC, a lot of this work, of course, is based on the rights-based approach. And I just wanted to recall Article 31 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that says Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestation of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds, medicine, knowledge of the properties of fauna and flora, oral traditions, etc. So seeds is really considered to be part of our right to protect and maintain our cultural heritage. And I'm reminded rematriation is a word that many Indigenous peoples use in addition to the internationally accepted term of repatriation. So thank you for the reminder. I'll incorporate both wordings into what I say. Chris, if you just want to show the first slide. The way that IITC and our affiliates understand this topic is the spiritual basis of our traditional food systems. I'm waiting for that slide.
Hold on. Yeah, okay. I'm getting it up here.
Okay, he's getting it up here. This is a picture from our first International Indigenous Peoples Corn Conference, and we've had 4 already, and looking forward to the 5th, which will be hosted in the community of one of our presenters today, the Shiprock chapter of the Diné Nation. But this is a picture of a traditional corn altar, and it shows the biodiversity of our seeds. The 4 sacred colors, the red, the black, the yellow, and the white, that represents also the 4 sacred colors, the 4 sacred directions, but also our ability to adapt to crises such as climate change through utilization and protection of this biodiversity. And it also is a picture of our rights, because without our right to land, water, protecting our traditional seeds from genetic modification, we can't exercise these rights. I'm popping back and forth with my pictures, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the picture, the screen share is
okay.
is giving me a little bit of a problem right now. Sorry, hold on.
That's okay. The next picture I have is kind of what we're doing today, except, you know, when we can get together in person, we're able to actually share seeds, recalling that we always had a tradition and trade routes with each other, pre-colonization, and that's how corn was able to spread from where it came into being in its current, you know, form through the creation stories in Guatemala and southern Mexico, and reached all throughout the hemisphere and even into other continents. You know, through trade with Rapa Nui, it came to Aotearoa, to New Zealand, I've learned. So this is a picture, if we can ever see it, of trading seeds and continuing to revitalize that tradition. And my last slide is actually at another corn conference we had in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, showing indigenous peoples from Mexico, Guatemala, and Oklahoma sharing seeds with each other. And it's a way that we can also regain some of our seeds that are drought resistant and insect resistant and respond to climate change. So in this tradition, I'm sorry you weren't able to see any of my pictures.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is giving me some issues here.
Okay, we're having issues with our screen sharing. I hope that it only affects me and not some of the other presenters. But I can tell you that what we're doing today is in that tradition. We can't be together to actually share seeds, but we can share our knowledge. And this was a request from our first two webinar series, that we really have an opportunity to share practical knowledge and bring in experts that can help us all in our efforts to revitalize, protect, and restore our traditional food systems. So with that, I will pass the microphone back to our moderator to introduce our panel of Indigenous experts. And we will be carrying on with this tradition throughout the next few weeks, every Friday, bringing in Indigenous experts to talk about different aspects of protecting and restoring our traditional food systems and our ecosystems for the survival of our future generations. So with that, thank you very much, Chokwe Utesia, and I pass the mic back to our moderator to introduce our panel.
Home, thank you very much, Andrea, for that introduction. Very important for me to hear this and to be part of this dialogue on seed saving coming from an indigenous nation that really elevated the idea of agriculture, sustainable agriculture for our generations. And you know, we're very familiar with a lot of this, and we hope to be able to learn more. I do, and I know that some of our folks are tuning in to listen to this. But we have an excellent panel today. Our first speaker is Clayton Brascoupe from, he's Mohawk and Anishnabeg. He's traditional Native American farmers, representing the Traditional Native American Farmers Association. He's the program director, and he's based out of New Mexico. So with that, I just want to go right to Clayton. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Sengi Tamo. Sego, Senecoa, buenos dias to everyone. Thank you for inviting me on this important subject. Like you were saying, I'm the program director for nonprofit Traditional Native American Farmers Association, and we've been in existence since 1992. And since the beginning, actually, our focus has been on seeds and getting you know, our people back into traditional agriculture. What I'm going to do is, hopefully this will work, real quickly go through some slides here and talk about some of the efforts we've been doing for since 1992. Last few days, actually, I've been, and this afternoon, I've got another presentation on the, I guess some methodology in growing seed, saving seed. And one of the series we did yesterday is actually on Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance, their website, and it was recorded. So if people want like real steps in growing good seed, you can check it out. That was also recorded. I think I can click on this and see if it opens up. Is that working? I can't tell.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's working.
Okay. I'll have to go back a little bit because I was, this is our logo. Andrea mentioned about the diversity and the sacred colors, and this is actually our logo for our association. And corn is central to our very existence, our culture. It goes beyond just a grain. It goes beyond just something for us to benefit its nutrients from. But we've looked at a lot of studies about our traditional cultivars, the corn, beans, you name it. They're superior in nutrition than a lot of the other hybrids, or actually GMO corn is not even bred for food. So these are the things that we need to sustain ourselves, to be healthy, and to continue our life as Indigenous people. As we know, we've been at this for a very long time, and hopefully we can continue. A lot of the corn, especially, there's a lot of origin stories about corn, and we need to listen to those and pay attention. But corn and humans are one and the same, and we have that symbiotic relationship that we need one. We need the corn, but the corn also needs us as human beings to love, care, and be there for its survival also. This is a shot of our family. We try to farm every year as much as we can. So actually just the act of agriculture, the act of farming continues to support, but also strengthen those bonds within our families, within our communities, and within our nations. I'm gonna go through these ones real quick. There was the farming method, or of planting the three sisters together, corn, beans, and squash. And those of you, this is a progression of these fields, but just those three foods, they say they've studied those, and they say those are like sort of the perfect diet, right? So our ancestors were genius in creating these systems, but also they knew about nutrition in order for us to grow strong and healthy. So that's another one of the, I guess, the focus points of having these seeds, growing these seeds, and taking care of them, that it addresses our nutritional needs. It addresses our spiritual needs, and it also addresses the needs of the earth itself, because that system can continue to build on itself. Yesterday we talked a little bit about, like I said, the how to grow, keep these lines pure, if you will. And I probably won't get into that much today because they'll take too much longer, but the efforts we've been working on to ensure that we have this diversity of each of the varieties. Corn is very diverse. Beans are also very diverse, and the squashes. So each of those have, if you take corn, each of the different varieties have different needs, requirements, maturity dates. Some prefer, can get by with less water. Some have longer maturity days, times. Some are short season. Some are very tall. Some are very short. And so those are the things that when we're looking at the climate change, the climate chaos, that diversity of the genetics in the seed is what's going to continue addressing those environmental factors. So the more of the seeds we do have that we've been able to find, able to cultivate and store, our children and our grandchildren will have those to ensure they're going to have a healthy, happy, and bountiful future. These are just some of the beans that we grew last year. Some of the, I guess, adopted crops are, you know, we grow tomatoes, we grow watermelons, and this is actually a yellow meated watermelon, and they're delicious, but also this particular and a couple of other types of watermelons are really good for storage. And this is a technology that was given to us or taught to us by our grandparents and our great-grandparents. Is real simple. And this particular picture of this watermelon was taken somewhere around 6 months past after we had picked it, and is as fresh and delicious as the day that it was harvested from the vine. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at when we're selecting for growing seed and saving seed. These are some, the diversity in melons, those are also an introduced crop, but we can adopt and adapt them to our home climates. What we've been doing here in Tzay Pueblo, actually since 1994, is showing really simple techniques in cleaning seed, storing seed, and saving seeds. This is one of the events that we did. We try to do these at least twice a year. And we use real simple tools. You can use the wind. You can also use, if you have electricity, you can use fans. You'll see two different types of fans there. So they were successful in cleaning some of these seeds. They're checking them out from a plant to seed, some of our students. And the students come from, over the years, they come from South America, Central America, and North America. And again, this is another one of our techniques. We're showing them that we can clean seeds with very little equipment. This actually is a seed cleaner. And I have my grandchildren clean seeds for us. And there's another way of we do that, is threshing. We step on the seeds with our feet. And what that does, if there's any seeds that's immature or has some sort of defect in it, it'll break. The good, healthy seeds won't break in this process. We do this with quite a few different seeds, corn and some beans. Not so much with the melons and so forth. That's a whole nother process. Again, one of my grandkids working with us, cleaning some beans. And that's with his mother. We're doing an initial cleaning out in the fields before we take it back to our farms. Another real simple technique that we teach is once you have your seed grown to maturity, you've got it cleaned. Now before you store it, hopefully before you store it, you can do a germination test on it, and then you can, before you when you do store it, you can label it at what rate of fertility that was. Generally, commercial seed companies are have federal regulations, and some of them range between 85% and 90%. Ours generally, when we do test them, are ranging between, the lowest I've seen is 95%. If it's lower than that, what we'll do is we'll re-clean them using that method of stepping on them. And this you can do very easily in our homes and in our kitchens. You don't need fancy equipment, but if you can afford it, great. If you have it, great. These are different kinds of beans that we're testing. Diversity, again, these are clean seeds. Label, 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 label at every step. Make sure you got a label on them, what they are, when they were grown, who grew them, all of that. This is Pueblo of Tesuque Seed Bank. It's a low-tech facility. It's underground. The whole system runs on only solar collecting system and batteries. It stays cool by nature. And what we're encouraging is that as a farmer, you keep your own seed collection. As a community, you need to do that also, and maybe as regions. And what we've been able to do, so this is just some of the seed. I haven't taken a picture of it since last year. So this is just some of the seeds, so we're labeling everything. We had one of our elders come to visit. People may know him, Oren Lyons from Onondaga. And what we've been doing actually is some of this collection that we have in the Pueblo is actually from other nations. We're holding some of their seeds until they may need them again. We're hoping that we can share some of our seeds to other locations, because if something goes to happen to any one of these seed storage facilities, there's a backup system. So you need redundancy in those collection systems. The other thing we've been doing as a farmers association, we've been hosting live seed exchanges. This one was in Pueblo of Tesuque, not last year, but the year before. So we invite farmers from the region, primarily northern New Mexico, that we know each other. We have trust in each other, and we share seeds. No seed is sold. And we talk about the value of the seeds, but we also enjoy food and music around that. This is another shot of the event. It starts with prayer, music, and then the final part of it is the seed exchange. The other thing we've been able to do is what Andrea was talking about, the rematuration of seeds. We did an event up in Taos Pueblo. This is Gilbert Suazo, Sr. He was the governor of that year. And we were able to have we brought back seeds. This Henrietta Gomez is holding a Taos Pueblo squash they hadn't seen in perhaps one generation there. And the seed was found in a different collection with Seed Savers Exchange. They grew it out in Iowa and then presented this back to Taos Pueblo. So those are the things that we also need to be doing, is looking for those relatives that used to be in our homes and our communities in the past. Ceremony, this was actually an event co-hosted by International Indian Treaty Council and our Traditional Native American Farmers Association. Last January, we hosted a corn summit with the Mayan people of Belize, and they were invited most of the different Mayan communities in Belize to this 3-day event. So we start with ceremony and reminds us of who we are and the importance of what we're doing as Indigenous people. I think this may be the last slide. We reach out to international groups, and this is, people may know her, Vandana Shiva. She's very vocal internationally in the seed conservation and the seed. She's from India, and we had the honor of inviting her to one of the events here in northern Mexico and showed us what we're doing, and she talked about what they're doing with the farmers in India, and everybody's heard about the strife that they're going through it currently. I believe I may have used up my time. I think that's it for what I had. I just got to figure out how to stop the screen share. Did I stop it or not yet?
Yeah. Yep.
Good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clayton. I'm sure everyone has enjoyed that presentation, and I was particularly moved by your sharing about the symbiotic relationship between humans and the seeds and the corn, and also that, you know, how that farming brings families together. And then finally, I was really struck by the importance of taking that precaution of sharing seeds, and how exchanging seeds even from North and South America can also help us as we look forward to the world to come. So thank you very much. I say hahom atiao in my language, and I'll get ready now to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Yazzie. He's Diné, representing the Shiprock Traditional Farmers Cooperative. He's the coordinator, and he is calling in from New Mexico. So Chile, thank you very much for being here. Good to see you again, and you have the floor.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, okay, Kahasilo. Say, yeah, a shin shido to a head, Lenny, Bassishin, here on it as a che, Kaqchikel, as a nulla, Ado, Shalchan, Yaha Kapadan. It Kodo to Eda Hodina. Any Kay avocado, a Yaha, Kodo, Kayahat, Yasti dole ko siya but what the yahat seskan etin di siya sago. My name is Yazzie, and I introduced myself as being of the Salt clan. Of my father's clan is waters flowing together as in confluence, and my mother's father's clan is towering house, and my father's clan is red across the forehead, and my children's clan is river dweller. We're a matrilineal people, so my wife's clan is the clan of my children. As Roberto introduced me, I am a coordinator with the Shiprock Traditional Farmers Cooperative, and we organized here about a year ago to basically do several things. One was to revitalize some farms that have just sat idle for many years, and we live right next to a river, the San Juan River. So we have a perpetual water supply for our irrigation. And we also formed to participate in the what's called the Farm to School program with the state education department, where we would sell to the schools. And we've also worked with different relief agencies in responding to the food needs of our people during the COVID crisis. So that's who we are, and our board members are, well, we call them Council of Natani. Our Our members are Beverly Maxwell, Joanne Tyler, Betsy Yazzie, Lula Sandoval, Clarina Clark, Wallace Buck Jr., and Harrison Yellowman. I very much appreciate my brother Clayton's presentation here. It was very, very informing and truly representative of how we regard corn, what we try to do as farming communities to preserve our corn. So corn, as we all know, is very central. It's a very key part of who we are as a people. And we go back into our history, our long history. In fact, corn is a part of our creation stories, where the four colors of corn that we have today are represented. They're in fact the part of the story and the transition between the deities and those of us here on the earth. We part of our transition was the corn people. So our roots, our history is very much part of our corn story, and because of that, we have a great reverence for our corn. Corn is part of our stories, our creation stories. It's included in the songs that we have. We have ceremonies that are dedicated to agriculture, to farming, and songs that are very specific to the corn. And we continue to do those ceremonies today, as many of our brothers and sisters up and down the hemisphere. We have ceremonies at the start of our farming season. We bring all of our seeds together, and we hold a ceremony, prayers and songs through the night, praying and hoping that we would have a good harvest. And then we do the same at the conclusion of the harvest, where we bring some of the produce that we raised, and we again have ceremony and songs to conclude that harvest season. We give appreciation and thanks for the blessings that we have had throughout the harvest season. In our area, we have a long history of agriculture. Before we came here to this particular part of the country, the ancestors that we call the Anasazi, the ancient ones, there is evidence of their farming here along the river. And to this day, we will use corn from the seeds all the way to the roots, all the way through the stalk, the leaves, of course the corn itself, and then onto the pollen, the very top of the corn stalks. Every part is very sacred. Every part has a great beneficial use to us. One of the central ceremonies that we have is our coming of age ceremony for our young women. The 4-day ceremony is all centered around corn. And so at the conclusion of the ceremony, after the girls have ground white corn, they will make a big corn cake. We will dig a corn pit, maybe 4 feet across, 6 to 8 inches down, and we'll have a fire in that pit for 2 days to get all of the ground area hot, very warm. And the ladies on the last day of the ceremony will pour the corn mush into the pit that's lined with corn leaves. And in the morning, they'll bring out the cake, and that's enjoyed by everybody. And the quality, the consistency of the corn cake really tells the story of the success of the ceremony. And we're very privileged in our family that all of the ceremonies that we've done for our granddaughters, for our daughters, have always come out in a very good way. We use corn to pray. Of course, as I said, we have our corn pollen that's harvested when the corn is maturing. The ladies will go out early in the morning and they'll dust down the corn pollen into bowls or into baskets, and that's cleaned, and the corn pollen is used to pray. And we also will use ground white corn to pray, and use ground yellow corn also to pray into the evening. So corn is a very central part of our ceremony and our everyday life. You know, one of the greatest things that we are addressing here is the hunger among our people. We know that our people, many of our families experience hunger. And that's one of the things that our farmers group is committed to do, is to grow the amounts of foods that we can here in our area, in our own immediate community. We have at least 5,800 acres of available farmland, and we have the water, and that's a lot of land to produce a lot of food. So our intent is to grow food and feed the people. And finally, you know, as part of our process, we want to also develop a seed library where we will begin bringing together seeds of our families. Many of our families carry on heirloom seeds that are seeds that have been passed on down through the generations. So just for safekeeping and preserving those parts of our history, we are developing a seed library. And one thing that's really interesting that we came across here just in the last 2-3 years is that there is a seed library that's located up in New York in Mohawk country. And they tell us that there are Diné seeds, seeds that originated here from our country over there, and seeds that that were generated back even as early as the 1850s, over 100 years ago. And the Mohawks that have been keeping these seeds are wanting us to bring those seeds home. So we are working in collaboration with Clayton and others to build our seed library so we can have a great repository, a great seed library for our generations to come. So that's some of the work that we're doing here. And maybe just a final thought is that the sacredness of the seed itself, the gift, the profound gift that seed represent from our Creator, you know, is something that we need to protect as farmers, as indigenous peoples, and that's what we're doing. You know, people that are not sensitive, that don't understand those ways of life are trying to change the genetics of seeds, and so we have genetically modified organisms, GMO seeds that are encroaching on us, and we need to defend our seeds and our lands, our waters against those intrusions. So we stand united as indigenous peoples to protect our seeds and our lands in those ways. So finally, I will just go through a couple slides here that shows some of the seeds that we have. These are the different melons and different cantaloupe seeds that we have. And we have bags, and as Clayton as we saw Clayton's pictures show, we have bags of these seeds, and we have different kinds of watermelons, different kinds of squashes, and pumpkins. And of course, we have our corn, the most prominent corn that we have for use is the white corn. And then also, as I stated, we use yellow corn quite a bit. And then the other corns that we have are the blue corn and the red corn. Then we have a mixed corn that we also grow. And of course, again, the different colors of the corn that we show here represent the four directions, our four realities, our four worlds, our four stages of life, etc., etc. The makeup of our creation is so much intertwined between all that represent our life, and corn certainly emphasizes the beauty of life that was given us by our great Creator. And I want to just go ahead and conclude here and with my brief presentation on behalf of the Shiprock Traditional Farmers Cooperative, the families, the farmers that we live here with, and all indigenous farmers throughout the world. We greet you as brothers and sisters, and for us to maintain our solidarity, our strength, and our hopes for the future of our families, for our people, for our Earth Mother. And thank you, Roberto, and International Inner Treaty Council.
Well, thank you so much, Chile. I say Hahom Atiao. Thank you, brother, for those words and sharing that wisdom with us. And those, like Clayton, those beautiful photos. Boy, it makes me want to get out there and start planting, seeing all those beautiful photos. But I was really, again, just moved by what you were ending up with, our profound gift. That's these seeds, in my language we say isi. These seeds are a profound gift from the Creator, and that our people have this sensitivity, right, towards this, that maybe not, maybe other people have lost along the way, which is why they're doing this genetics and all of that. So I think that was really important. And again, you highlighted that importance of the seed sharing and how the community now really wants to build that library. And so I think as Indigenous peoples, we need to really take in that message. Funders who are out there listening, you know, this is a real need. You were hearing from Indigenous people who are looking towards our future generations and for the sustainability of our cultures. So this is really important. Thank you so much. I want to go right to our next speaker, who is Francisco Cali Tzay. He's Maya Kaqchikel from Guatemala. He's a traditional farmer, and he also happens to be the new special rapporteur on the rights of Indigenous peoples, the UN Special Rapporteur on the rights of Indigenous peoples. Hermano Francisco, it's always an honor. You have the floor.
Bueno, buenos días a todas y a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Francisco is speaking in his mother tongue. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, grandmothers and grandfathers. Francisco needs to move his mic, please.
¿Ahora?
Sí.
Ahora en una fecha bastante importante, y es que hoy
is a very important
estamos en una fecha dentro del calendario maya.
In the Mayan calendar,
8 Canil.
Today, this is known as
8 semilla.
Canil.
Es el día de la semilla.
That means 8.
Es el día
Today is the day of the seed in the Mayan calendar. It is the day to pray to seeds. It is a day to recognize the importance of seeds. Excuse me. I'm sorry, they had to correct me because I always like to listen to the translation, how I'm being translated, but I was corrected and told that, no, I have to switch channels. Now, Francisco took his microphone off and the translators can't hear him very well. Okay, well, we're just dealing with technology here, and I thought that it would be better this way, but now I was told to put the mic back on. Anyway, long ago when I was a child, I would go along with my grandparents to plant and cultivate, harvest the seeds and the corn, and for many different reasons, I had to leave Guatemala because of political persecution. And so for 15 years, I was away and separated from cultivating the land. When I returned to Guatemala, my grandparents had died, but the seeds were still there. This is not something I chose. I did not say to myself that, well, I will be the seed protector and I will be the person who inherits this work of my grandparents, but it was needed. It was someone needed to recover this work, and especially together with my wife, we realized that if we cultivated our own food, we would eat the best food. So essentially, because it is not cheap to produce your own food, it's actually cheaper to buy food in the market than it is to produce your own food. And so that's why many people, what they do is go to markets and buy their food, and when they cook it, or if they do cultivate their food, they use a lot of different types of chemical fertilizers and herbicides and insecticides so that the product will not be more expensive than what they consume. But we decided as a family that we would eat healthy food and cultivate healthy food like our grandparents did, and we began doing that. But the reality we were faced with was that the lands over the years had been contaminated by these chemical agents. And so we began a natural cleaning process to begin to cultivate our seeds. That took us about approximately 5, 6, 7 years to clean out the chemicals, the chemical products that had been used. And we began to do this, but still we confronted. It wasn't like we confronted it like a fight, but it was a problem that we did have to confront with our neighbors, because we were using the waste from the corn plants. Instead of burning it, as people commonly do, we began to recycle and bury it, and burying it all together in the land. When we began burying it, this created a reaction from our neighbors complaining that we were going to attract more insects that attack the crops. They told us not to do that, and that it would cause negative consequences to all of them. So we then had to explain this to them, that it would not cause problems. And so we agreed with them that if it affected them, we would cover any damage that it caused. After the agricultural cycle ended, they found that this was the first year that they didn't have insect problems. And they asked why. They asked us about this, and we explained that these products that we buried, the corn waste products that we buried, gives this food to the insects for them to eat. And by doing that, it helps to convert all of this organic material into organic natural fertilizer for our crops. So this is what we did as a family. This is what is known in the United States as compost, natural composting. And as our family, we began collecting all of our food waste, vegetables, things from the kitchen that we would dump into this compost pile as our family fertilizer. And we would get about between 60 to 80 bags of organic fertilizer from this work that we did each year. And this was what we used for our corn cultivation. I'm not sure if Chris is able to share the slides and the photos that I have. Let's see. Here we go. This is more or less our corn production from this year. The only thing missing here is the red corn. But all of the corn you see here are 4 different types of corn. The whitest corn you see is the corn that we use for ceremonial food. And the rest of the corn, it can be used for anything we want. It's also used for traditional food, but this white corn masa is what's used especially for the traditional meals that we prepare, for ceremonial meals we prepare in our town. This is what we've been doing. Now we've been doing this without using any chemicals or chemical fertilizers, for over 25 years. So this is the result we have now. Bean corns that we have. Also, my wife is working with amaranth seeds, and also on my wife's land we can grow coffee, oranges, and there's a type of citrus. It's a little bit like a lime, but it's not quite the same thing that you call limes in the United States. It's sort of between an orange and a lime, and we grow that. We can grow just about anything on our land. They also sugar, which is not It's not exactly the white sugar, but we grow sugar cane to produce that type of traditional sugar that they call in Mexico piloncillo. It's a type of traditional brown sugar. You can see here the weeds. These are healthy weeds and that grow, that contribute to our land. We don't do any type of burning. This contributes to our healthy cultivation. And one other thing I wanted to share with you is that after we stopped use of all chemical fertilizers and insecticides, about 8 years ago, we saw the growth and restoration of the biodiversity in those small lands that we have. The toads returned, and the toads returned in this area, especially where there had been chemicals. And we were very happy about that because the toads are an animal that eats the insects. So we were so happy to see this return of biodiversity to our lands by stopping the use of all chemicals. And I just want to explain that since I come from a traditional farming family, my intent was not to be a seed saver and for that to be my role, saving seeds, but together with my wife, that's what we became by engaging in this traditional farming technique. That's what we do every year. And you can see that's what we're doing in that photo there. We're saving our corn seeds from each year. We save the seeds so that we can make the tamales. Many of you know about our traditional tamales. We do that every year. So I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. This is what I wanted to share with you to explain the way we in Guatemala have been working to rescue and save our traditional seeds in our family. Thank you very much, my brother Roberto. Thank you.
Ahom Pancho, thank you so much for sharing that. I know some folks might have some questions, and they are putting them in the chat, but we'll be going to the questions after our following speaker. I just wanted to say thank you so much to Pancho again, who shared those beautiful stories about coming back to the land and also about doing some things that some folks might not have thought was a traditional way, but that it actually was, and it actually brought back the biodiversity to the area. So that was really important, and having that courage, right, to talk to people and also say, hey, if I do this and it brings some harm, I'll have some form of restitution for you. That's a real indigenous ideology, and I really appreciate him sharing that wisdom with all of us. And so let me move on to our final speaker, last but not least, as they say, my sister Amy Juan. She's a Odom. She's with the Odom Working Together project. She's going to be presenting a planting song, a song lullaby for the planting and caring of seeds. Hahom Ditu, thank you, sister, for being here and for being willing to share. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. Good morning, everybody. I just want to say thank you for being with us today, and also to send my greetings to the fellow panelists. It's an honor to be here with you this morning and to listen and to learn and to continue to be inspired, especially as a young person who's continuing this work in my community. And so this morning, we kind of switched things up just to make sure that we're able to share things. And I wanted to share a couple of things from my community here. So I'm a younger person who's gotten involved in our food work in our community on the Donat Nation about 10 years ago, working with the Donat Community Action nonprofit organization out in cells. And, you know, previous to that, learning what I could from my grandparents, my grandma, my maternal grandmother, she loved to plant, and my, my paternal grandmother, married the late Mary Melissa Miles, and then my maternal grandmother, the late Mary Elizabeth McGill, was an herbalist. And so I've always been around plants, and have continued to learn, and I'm still continuing to learn. And so I just wanted to share a couple of photos and to share about how we're doing in our community before I sing the song. And in this picture here, this is men from the community. They're threshing bao, or tepary beans, and that's the swook bao, the red tepary beans. You can see the pile there, and they're stomping on them and threshing them out at Papago Farms, I believe. This was a couple of years ago, and you see some squash there. So I just wanted to take time to honor some of our elders that have taught us these things, taught us these values of oidak, of growing, of being a farmer. And oidak in autumn is your field or your farm. And here is the late Danny Lopez, who shared a lot of songs, especially. There was a time where no one knew these songs, or there was just very few families that knew these planting songs. But with the help of teachers like Danny, who taught autumn students all the way from kindergarten to college at Don Autumn Community College before he passed on to the next life, the next world. He spent his whole life teaching us what he could, and you could see here, he's sharing a planting song. They're singing to the squash. This is my grandpa, the late Elmer Francisco. He was also a grower, quiet man, you know, who always took the time to have his oidak. And here he's sharing his harvest of caño, or sugarcane, that we also grow. And he was harvesting this for our table that we set in November, All Souls Day, or we call it Rimoshan. So, you know, just having those experiences growing up, watching my grandpa harvest and share, and all of the seeds that he has there. The kaij is how we say seeds in autumn. And then we also have Clifford Pablo, who is still working very hard at the Don Autumn Community College Agriculture Extension Program. And I want to share about Clifford because he's also, you know, a very humble man. But when we first started our work at Don Autumn Community Action, and we started to really go out into the community to talk about our traditional foods and culture, he came to us and he said, well, what are you doing to grow farmers? And he really opened our eyes to our food situation. And this was in the early 2000s. And so what he shared with us was just our history of growing food and his experience as a farmer, farming all his life. And one of the facts, I guess, that he shared with us, or the historical facts for our community, is over the years, in the early 1920s, we were growing about 1 million pounds of tepary beans throughout the Don Autumn Nation, or different autumn communities. And by the early 2000s, we were only growing about 100 pounds. And so when we look back at our history of boarding schools, our men and young men leaving home to join the service, and just the transition of food in our communities, a lot happened for us to get to that point. And so it was really mind-blowing to think of our ability to do that, to grow that many pounds of bao, of tepary beans. And so that was about 10 years ago, and we've really come a long way in our communities. The different growers, I would say we're growing tons of tepary beans. We're not at the million pound mark yet, but we're getting there. And to the right of the screen is one of my good friends. His name's Zaid Arnold. He's a very young farmer. He actually started interning with Clifford when he was about 16. And he's in his mid-20s now. He has a family, and he started his own, how would I say, his own homestead, taking over his grandpa's land, rebuilding his grandpa's house, and starting to grow food. And it's taking him a long time, but it's been such a awesome experience to watch him grow. And he's also starting his own seed collection that you see there. And this is a shower of bao, of tepary beans. This is out at Papago Farms, and this is where I and others first started getting involved and just seeing the magic. And then I say magic because, you know, we were out there in the 115, 118 degree weather, harvesting, planting, caring for these foods at Papago Farms, which is located west, I guess southwest of Cells, or of Tucson, where we're at now, and it's actually along the U.S.-Mexico border. And so it's a huge piece of land that Toca was able to grow a lot of food on. And this is just one of my favorite images of having such an abundance of bao, enough to swim in, enough to shower in, and it was really beautiful. In coming a long way, one of the things that we did this year, especially in looking at the food situation in our communities, not just O'odham communities, but communities here in the Southwest, we were able to gather some data information and find and locate a lot of our seeds. And finding a listing of seeds of about 100 different varieties that came from different people, different communities on the O'odham Nation, and comparing that to what we're growing now. I would say we're growing about 9 varieties of O'odham seeds, and that's including tepary beans, the bao, the had, the squash, the hoon, the corn, and other foods that were introduced, like the sugar cane, different kinds of melons and what have you. But this year we saw some amazing things. Here in the picture is a picture of this year's harvest from Santander Co-op Farm. And as you can see, there's different colors and different types of bao that are coming back. It's not just the tota bao, the white tepary beans, and it's not just the swug bao, the red bao. You can see black. There's also nice dark chocolate colors, and then we've also seen blue speckled bao, and many others that are making a comeback, and it makes us very happy. And sometimes they just, you know, they show themselves, and I think it's because they know that we're ready. You know, we've done a lot of work to get to where we are today, and they're coming back to us. And so that was really good to see, and this was just this past fall. This is out at the Cali Farms. This is a harvest of huijor, or the winter peas. And I'm just going to go through these pictures. These are some of the farmers that were grown, actually, out of Toca, the beginning farmers apprenticeship program, which turned into the new generation of O'odham farmers program, and eventually creating a program for younger youth, high school youth. That was, again, the new generation of O'odham farmers program, Project Oiduk. And it was a lot of fun. Internships and just the whole experience of bringing young people in to not only learn how to plant, care for, and harvest and cook our foods, but also to harvest our wild foods. This is also some of our hoon. So it was good to hear the conversations about corn. This variety of corn grows in 60 days. We have 2 varieties that we grow now. And so just wanted to show that it's adapted itself. These are some of the young women that took time to make that connection when we had our Tepri Bean conference in my village. Some moments captured. This is saguaro fruit. This is one of our wild foods, and those tiny seeds grow into a huge giant. And I'm going to stop here to share the song just with this image of these young people. I served as a culture teacher for a couple of years at Bobby Kivry High School, and I loved just taking the students out and showing them all of these skills, and also just to see how happy it made them. And you can see in the picture, everybody's smiling. They didn't mind being out or getting dirty. They were really proud of our harvest of squash there. And so with this planting song, I want to honor the late Francis Manuel, who took the time to share these songs with us. And there's a collection of 4 planting songs in there in sequence. The first planting song talks about planting the seed and singing to the seed and the lullaby. In our songs, you know it's a planting song when it has Yiru ya aru, and that's the lullaby part to the song, treating it as a child, as an infant, as a baby, putting it into the ground. And usually we don't put our seeds into the ground until after the first rain. Clifford, he would say, you know, that rainwater is like breast milk. You want the best food and nutrients for our seeds. And so that's why we wait until that time so they have the best start. And yeah, I always think about that. You know, that's water, that's life-giving breast milk water that we prayed for, and it's going into our food, and that's what we take into ourselves when we eat it. So the planting song that I'm going to share is the second planting song, and it's in celebration of how far we've come. This planting song sings about the time that you take in the morning and the time that you take in the evening to spend with your food. For our farmers, you know that time you see that morning sun on your plants and that evening sun on your plants, on your food, on our relatives, and just you know, being thankful for how far we've come, and but also looking forward to our harvest. So I'll share this here. Iru ya aru tatai chuchim ipoi na siaring tamai shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna tatai chuchim ipoi na siaring tamai shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna iru ya aru tatai chuchim ipoi na hudunya tamai shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna tatai chuchim ipoi na hudunya tamai shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna nya wa shoshon chuhuna iru ya aru. Sapa, wishing everybody out there a successful planting season coming up this spring, and many blessings. Thank you.
Hahom itu. Thank you, sister, for that beautiful song. Wow. Now I'm really in the mood for planting. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Amy, for the presentation. And I really love the pictures with the intergenerational sharing of the knowledge. And I think it really hits home throughout the various presentations, talking about how the seeds and the planting bring families and communities together. Started that way with Clayton's presentation, and it ended it that way with yours. So I think it was really beautiful to go that way. We're getting close to our time to close, but we'll have a few moments for a couple of questions and then maybe some final comments. I know there was one question for Pancho, and it was about how you were able to decontaminate the land when you were first starting out with your agricultural initiative back home. So I don't know, Pancho, if you can just share a few words about how did you clean and decontaminate the land when you started your agricultural project back home.
Well, when we started to plant and harvest, we knew that we had a big challenge ahead of us in trying to decontaminate. We did not use the chemicals. That's the first step that you have to take, is not use anything chemical, because the problem is if one continues to use chemicals, then you'll never be able to cleanse the land. First, you have to stop completely using any kind of chemical substance. We knew that in the first year, what we were going to produce was going to bring some contamination from these chemicals that was going to be quite important. And then the second year, we started to use our own compost. That was not being used anymore. It was just left there and abandoned. So we started to use all the compost that we had in order to produce food. And that's how we did it, gradually, slowly. The third and fourth year, I do remember that our production of corn went way down, and then the corn started to come, the harvest was really small corn, but it was because the decontamination was being effective. And then later on, after that, then once again, there was the same quality of corn. And after 8 or 9 years, the production of our food became established. Let's call it natural. And we could even say that the produce we had more produce. It was incredible that the beans we had a huge production of beans. And at home, we still have some beans that we have stored for 4 or 5 years, and they're still in very good condition. So it's a long process, and it takes at least 5 years in order to achieve this decontamination. That's a process that we used.
Thank you so much for that. We have a few other things coming in. There was one question about perhaps some recommendations about organic fertilizer. I don't know if whoever wants to take that one. Also, there's another question that's coming in about how these efforts in local communities support the global indigenous governance of genetic resources, how we support indigenous communities who have lost their seeds. There's a number of questions in this one, and how to restore medicinal plants. I mean, there's a few there. If we want to just maybe quickly go around to the panelists to see if they want to take any one of those, and let's just keep it short because we are running out of time here. So organic fertilizer, there's global governance on genetic resources, and how maybe to support communities that have lost their seeds?
I can share a bit. So with our work here at IITC, we've created an alliance of O'odham and Yaqui communities who were in that situation had very little or no seats. And so I think what we've done is to come together and to realize where we're at, and also to locate our seeds. Who has our seeds? For us here in the Southwest in Tucson, it's Native Seed Search. And so there's a lot to talk around that, but basically we're ready to rematriate our seeds and take care of our seeds and grow them out. And so it's taking that first step. And also reaching out to others who may be in that situation. So we've actually gotten seeds back to the Yaqui community here in Tucson, in the US, and also in Mexico, Rio Yaqui. And that's we're really proud of that. And as far as O'odham organic matter for us, what we like to use is the plant matter underneath the mesquite trees, because they hold a lot of nitrogen. And so to work that back into our soil, and also the foam that comes down from the mountains when it rains, that also has a lot of nutrients that we work back into the soil. And so just those are two things that I can share now.
Wonderful, Amy. I know Andrea wanted to comment on the genetic resources globally. And Andrea, maybe you can also then, you might want to announce for the next we're going to have. Do you want to just tie those in together?
Certainly. You know, the International and Treaty Council, our purpose is to link these kinds of grassroots expertise and the challenges Indigenous peoples are facing with the opportunities that we as Indigenous peoples have helped create and continue to push forward at the United Nations and international arena. And we are involved right now in the negotiation for a new legally binding convention that includes what they're calling Indigenous peoples' genetic resources, you know, our traditional seeds, our traditional plants, animals, fish, and it's really a struggle. And that's in a way another topic, but we're also involved in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Convention on Biological Diversity to insist that our rights to our traditional seeds that are part of our cultural heritage be respected, and that Indigenous peoples' voices, especially our knowledge holders and traditional food producers, are included in those processes. So I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, just to say that we are engaged in that process and taking the voices that come from our traditional exchanges and our corn conferences and other conferences into those bodies and arenas, so we make sure that your voices are included and guide our policies and the positions that we take. I think that we probably need to add a topic on seed repatriation, and specifically some of the ways that we're doing that. Both within the agencies, the government agencies, universities, non-Indigenous organizations like Native Seed Search and others, where we're helping tribal nations to identify where their seeds even are, and then how to get them returned. So we can add that to our series and bring in some of that expertise as we move on. So we're going to have, because of the importance of this topic, we're having part 2 of our seed saving workshop, our kickoff of our new practical knowledge sharing series. Next week at the same exact time, we'll have another 4 expert speakers, one from Haudenosaunee, one from Nahuatl peoples in Mexico. There's a couple of other speakers that we've asked to participate in the next round. And so if you didn't get your questions answered, please hold them for next week, because we'll be having a continuation of this discussion that I hope all of you can participate in, and let people know too that these discussions are happening, because it's I don't know where else people can go to hear Indigenous peoples from so many different nations and countries that are doing the same work in similar ways and defending our rights and survival at the same time. So I want to thank everybody for joining our first series, and we will look for you next week, same time. That's 11 a.m. Mountain Time, Tucson, but you know, on the flyer you can click and see where your time is, and you can use the same link for registering for all of the future webinars. We have one on fisheries, one on traditional fire prevention and fire management, where we're having someone from Australia, Alaska, Canada, and California, and many others. Practical knowledge sharing by our own experts, the Indigenous peoples doing this work on the ground. So thank you, Chokwe Otesia from International and Treaty Council. We look forward to continuing our work together.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for wrapping that up for us. My name is Roberto Mucaro Borrero. I had the honor of moderating this session today. I'll be back again next week. But I just wanted to quickly thank our speakers once again, Clayton Brascoupe, Yazzie, Francisco Cali, Tzay, and Amy Juan for being here and sharing their knowledge. And go to the IITC website if you want to see our next slate of talks and all the information that we share there and how you can possibly engage in some of this work. Thank you to our translators for staying on just a little bit longer, and we will see you all again next week.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.